Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. It's been, I think, about 2 weeks since we did a video. Unfortunately, got laid up for a while, but we're back in the shop now. Got the fire going finally in the garage, and we're back working here. We got hit with a pretty bad snowstorm, so at the moment, the 34 chassis that was supposed to go out, we've got to wait until we clear away 3 or 4 feet of snow. And then give room for the customer to bring a trailer in. So right now that's still kind of there, waiting for it to go. So kind of leaves us back with the Plymouth, which was where we were at on the last episode. So gas tank is in. We're still going to go with the same plan as what we talked about, I think, in the last episode, which is basically to take apart the rear end, clean everything up, we'll paint the rear end. We've got all these boxes on the floor for brand new brakes, you know, the disc brakes, the lines, emergency brakes and everything else. So basically from the center half of the chassis back, we'll take everything apart, clean it up and paint it. So hopefully you'll see from at least this point back, the plan is to turn everything black. We do have another transmission for it, an S10 transmission. It's been taken apart so far. Feedback so far is a very good core, so it's going to get cleaned and rebuilt. The plan was going to be is to sell off the Camaro T5, use the S10 with another bell housing. So essentially I'll also be taking the engine and transmission out, putting it back on the cradle, and then eventually working our way forward. So right now, I guess from this afternoon on, I'm going to start taking things apart, taking engine transmission out, and carrying on with the 40 Plymouth chassis. So as I said, had to disassemble a whole bunch of stuff to get going at working on the back half. We have the engine out and back on the stand that it came on, got the gas tank back out, the transmission out. That transmission, that's a perfectly good, fully rebuilt T5 from a Camaro, just add oil and go. Customers spent a lot of money on it, but unfortunately we can't use it just because of the shifter location. I have the S10 transmission now, it's all apart. We've got to clean the outside and get the inside and then back up to get rebuilt. So, and then we'll order a bell housing that's not turned like it is here on the Camaro one. So kind of that's put aside like right now. Over on the back end of the frame, what I've done so far, one of the things I need to do is basically replace the emergency brake. And I haven't worked on 8.8s a whole lot. Mostly what I've been working on is big 9 inches. So they're kind of easy for me. But one thing I realized when you're replacing the inner brake shoes on these, the best thing to do is actually take the axle out to access it. And maybe some of you guys out there know how to easily do it without taking the axle out, but so far all my mechanic friends, he says, take the axles out. It's a whole lot easier. So that process of taking the axles out over here, for those that don't know, I don't know if the camera lady can come over here or not, but the process for getting those axles out is there's a little nut right here that we take out, and then there's a pin that holds the spider gears in place. You pull that rod out, and then what happens is it'll give room. I'll be able to push on this axle here, and there's a C-clip here that I'll pull out, then I'll pull the axle out. So all kinds of videos on the internet on how to do that, but that's where I'm at right now. Gonna pull those axles out, put the e-brakes onto it. I'm going to give the rear end a good brush again. I did a really good wire wheel job onto it before, but it's been sitting a while. We'll clean it up some more. We'll get a nice coat of black paint onto it, get everything back together. And then what I'll start doing is working here on the frame. Same approach is going to be on the frame. We're just going to basically wire wheel it and clean it up. It's actually not really pitted at all. We'll put a coat of POR 15 onto it, a rust encapsulator, then a coat of black paint on top of that. So going to carry on with that. I'll show you as we go. can see from the time lapse, I used a wire wheel and a brush to clean everything down. The frame actually was in really good shape. It's not pitted really. There's actually still some original paint on it. Probably the ideal scenario would have been that we could actually take the frame out, get it sandblasted, and then sprayed somewheres, but time and then there was trying to keep within the budget. The customer and I decided what we would do is basically strip it down the best we can, use POR 15. There's other rust encapsulators we can use. If you watch Iron Trap, he quite commonly uses an Eastwood rust encapsulator on some of his frames, but here I've used this stuff, POR 15. It's pretty hard stuff. Started using it. Don't use it on everything, but use it on a few things. One key thing with it though is you've got to put a couple coats of paint on top of it because it's not UV resistant. Now, given that this is on the underside of the car, it's probably not going to see a lot of UV and it'll probably last. But nevertheless, I put a couple coats of Rust-Oleum industrial black enamel on top of all of this. So the plan was to basically do the back half first and then work on the front after it. So right now we're teeter-tottered here on the jack stands and some weight to kind of do as much of the back half as I could. It is quite messy. I've used some cardboard for backdrops and stuck the fan up in the window to try and pull some of the fumes and the dust out. So right now I'm at the stage where I'm about ready to reassemble things. The black paint is dried and the POR 15 is dried. Over on the rear end, as I said earlier on, we took the axles out, put the e-brake shoes on, and then now I've got the rotors and the calipers on. Going to sort out where we're going to put the flex lines. One thing I did is I had ordered an 8.8 Ford rear end flex line here, which usually mounts in the middle, and then you've got brake lines going to either caliper. One thing I noticed with these calipers is that these calipers are actually set up for banjo fittings. So quite possibly what I might do instead is actually get, I've got a set of banjo fitting flex lines. So we may actually run an individual flex line from each caliper up to the side of the frame. I did that before my Model A, so haven't quite decided for sure which way I'm going to go on that, but that's what we're going to have to figure out here shortly. So like I said, right now I'm going to take the 4 bars that we painted. They're dry now. They've been hanging here for a little over a day or so. We'll put the urethane bushings in them. Oops. The urethane bushings and the sleeves back in them, make sure that they're greased up. We're going to use our grade 8 bolts and our stover nuts to put them on, because now we're basically putting the rear end together for permanently. So follow along. Hopefully I can show you this with the whole rear end put back together again and back on the ground before the end of the video. So here we have it. Back half is all painted. We've got a couple coats of paint over the POR 15. Have the rear end in place, all the brakes put in place. We've got the 4 bars all painted and everything tightened in place. I've got grade 8 bolts and stover nuts on everything. Washers, everything is in nice and tight. Everything is right where it was before. Got our 3 degrees on the pinion like we're supposed to. I didn't change any lengths of anything, so really wasn't expecting any issues when it went back together again. I did not put the gas tank back in for 2 reasons. One, I need to find a type of an insulator, like a plastic or a rubber insulator, to go between the brackets and the tank itself. And the other thing is that the tank over there, it's a galvanized tank. I'm not sure if I need to paint it, so put undercoating onto it. So before I stick that back in the frame, I got to figure that out. That's something, if anybody has an opinion on that, reach out to me, let me know, what do you think? Leave the galvanized tank as is and install it, or should I go get a galvanized primer, put a coat of paint onto it to give it the extra protection? Not sure on that one. Most of the cars I've built before either had a painted gas tank that went in the trunk, or in the case of the 32 Fords, we've got gas tanks on the outside that we paint them the same color as the car. This is just a little different for me. The other thing I wasn't able to do was put the flex line on As I said, I had an 8.8 Ford flex line here that would have went on somewheres here. But the complication is that the calipers take a banjo bolt. So I figured, well, that's pretty straightforward. I'll just use an extra set of flex lines I have here with the banjo bolts, and I'll attach them here and bring them up to the frame. And I've done that before. The only thing is that the ones I have are 7/16, and guess what? I've got 10mm metric ones, so couldn't work on this episode. So I've ordered a set of flex lines with 10mm banjo bolts. So what we'll do on the next episode or the following one, we'll put an individual flex line from each caliper up to the frame and run our brake lines through. So that's it for this episode. Sorry, it's a little short. Just kind of got over 2 weeks of having the flu, which knocked me out, and we couldn't work in a shop, but we're back in here full time now. So we've got the back half of the Plymouth done. Next week we'll be doing the front half. But that's it for this week. Please like, share, tag, and subscribe, and let me know what you think about coating the gas tank, okay? Everybody take care, and I'll see you next week.